Hey guys, I just wanted to come on because I promised to talk, right? I said that I would give you all a talk around my book, Compassion Reporting. And so I wanted to keep that promise. I wanted to keep my word. Um, uh, a lot has changed since the last time that I have been on my digital show and doing the work that people who have followed me, how they got to know me. Is through the digital show. Although I don't have a bunch of followers and a whole bunch of people that are tuning in to my digital show weekly, and excuse me, I'm a little congested. But although I don't have a huge following, I do respect and I'm thankful for those who have chosen to follow the magazine's page on YouTube and subscribe to the publication for what I do release and when I do put things out, and especially the digital show. It's so much stuff out there to watch and to tune into. I know that engaging with topics that are not always entertaining is not an easy thing to do, considering the load of information and entertainment that's out there. So I want to say that I'm grateful and I'm thankful for that, and even for you all tuning in today. Thank you for checking in and checking out what it is that I have to say when I say that I do have something to say. But I've been promoting my book. I put a book out last year that I wrote. It was in my heart, but it wasn't on paper. And it was in my thoughts, but I had not formulated or began to put together a manuscript to publish it. It was one of those things where I was just like, I have to say this. I have to put this on paper and work it from there. And so I decided to put it in a book called Compassion Reporting. And the premise of the book is to remind people of the work in the public service that goes into journalism. And I say public service intentionally because over the years and over time, I feel as though journalism has been turned into complete public relations opportunities. Um, I hear people saying that, oh, the news doesn't cover the good news, or the news isn't, it's all negative. And although I understand that, although I get the frustration in that, and I understand that there has been a formula created to where certain groups of people are pinned in a certain light. I get the injustices in media and news. Totally understand it. Don't disagree there. But what I do disagree with is thinking, and this isn't the people's fault, but thinking that the news is only or created to promote certain things and certain people. And that's just not what the news is for. The news is to hold people in the democracy accountable and responsible to what they are supposed to do. Now, of course, you cannot make up a complete news organization. Well, nowadays you can. Nowadays you can create a entirely uh, a, a news cycle dedicated to politicians because it's a lot going on in those arenas. But I get that you have to incorporate some community stuff, highlight people, doing those things, putting fillers in between the news and the things that are happening in our communities when it comes to legislature and a lot of the political stuff. All of those things that matter, the ordinances, just the things that our politicians set out to do daily. That stuff is what the news is for. But to fill it with other things that's happening in our communities, that's great. But the premise and the focus on news organizations should be to hold our elected officials responsible. And at the end of the day, that is what the people should require and demand from any local news provider in their communities. Focusing on crimes, I mean, there could be, of course, there could be an area focusing on that. But the focus should be on our politicians and holding them accountable to how they're handling or mishandling a uptick or a rise in crime and high crimes. What are they doing? Holding our elected officials accountable to do what we elected them to do. And I personally feel that we've gotten away from this. And the purpose of compassion reporting was to turn the focus back on the needs of the people, back on what it is the people need to function in a community, in the communities that they build around them, and how we, as public servants to our communities, how we handle that work, how we show up in that work, what we do to make it easier for our communities to understand what's happening around them, how we write those stories, how we tell those stories, how we utilize the data that we have access to show our communities what's happening around them, to bring the picture to the forefront of what it is they're creating in their community, um, as the people, and things that they may like or dislike, and show them, hold the mirror up to them and let them see what it is that they're creating around them. That's our job. We have to uplift the voices of the people, and not to display some form of entertainment, not to use it to get clicks and and gain popularity. Our work is not work that um, should be upheld in a way of sensationalism. But sensationalism is leading in our news telling, news stories. We A lot of times we find ourselves following the popular stories that people are interested in, and although people's interest is important, it's not our job as news folks to deliver that. Um, I got my background in magazine article writing. That leaves a little bit more room for entertaining people, but I still understand the importance of digging deeper into a lot of the issues to give people a deeper, more fleshed out understanding of what's going on around them. And this next generation of news reporters that are entering the field, first and foremost, I would like to say, in working with them as interns, they have a deep desire to serve people. And that's a good thing to see, and to steer away from sensationalism. So I like that. I appreciate, and I've said this over and over again, I appreciate the educational system involving themselves in saying that media literacy needs to be a part of curriculum. Totally appreciate that, because when you give young people an understanding from the place of need, you learn to help shape minds so that people can be served better in their needs. So I see that. I appreciate that. I understand that young minds are impressionable, and we have to put imprints on them that helps them shape a better future for themselves and the next generation. So, from my angle and how I'm seeing things, I see young people involving themselves in more of a way that a democracy should be run, and that gives me a lot of hope in things to come in the future and what the future will look like. And so I'm using my book to do outreach in that way. And the goal for me is to create a nonprofit organization centered around local news organizations that will help communities who do not have a local newspaper, and use young people from those communities to tell the stories and to uh, advocate in a way. And I know a lot of journalists do not like to be considered advocates, but in a sense, advocate in a way for the needs of the communities. When it comes to local news presence and local news relevance in those communities. And so I'll be starting this and in the south suburban area of Chicago. Um, it's been hard for me to focus on doing this in these times because the south suburban area of Chicago is under a time of exposure, and so which is a good thing, because one thing that I would not want is to put young people in a situation where so much is being tested, so many people are being exposed. I wouldn't want young people to go into those communities now because it's so toxic. But in time to come, I look forward to bringing local news to villages and communities and townships that don't have that representation and don't have a news source holding the elected officials accountable. So I'm looking forward to doing that work. That will be a part of my next venture with this book, Compassion Reporting. I've been able to see the need. Writing the book has exposed me to the need. And the reason I call it, I probably should have put this in the beginning, but the reason I call it compassion reporting is because I feel like you cannot serve people without a good portion of compassion. You have to be able to meet people where they are and understand their needs from that place. And I think the only way that we can stick to relevant news and the news that people need instead of what they want is if we really have a compassion for serving the people, truly have a compassion for serving the people. I believe, I like to believe that if there was compassion in news reporting, it would have never taken on the direction that it took on to sensationalize things, um, to create this narrative that if it bleeds, it leads. I don't know where that came from. I don't know the history behind that, but thinking about it just makes me sad because um, there's been a lot of reporting over the years that even if someone denies that that was an angle, the reporting that we've seen over the years does not support that. So I want to get back to the basics. I want to get back to um, the people. I want to get back to telling the stories that matter and to give people what they need to create the communities that they desire to have. I want to just get back to being normal. I know that that's far, that's like, what does that mean? But making it about people, making our stories about the people and not about the problems, if that makes any sense. Empowering the people with truths, facts, their realities, and not telling the tea, spilling the gossip. All of that's weird for me. No, we don't want tea. We want truth. So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up. It was nice coming on to chat a bit. But until next time, bye bye.